Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to the class Writing JUnit Test Cases for the Spring Boot application. This is the continuation of the previous video. In case if you missed the part 1 and part 2, the link will be given in the description section of this video. Go ahead and watch those parts before proceeding this video. In the part 1 and part 2, we discussed about writing the JUnit test cases for the repository layer and the service layer. And in this part, we are going to learn how we can write the JUnit test cases for the controller layer. So let's get started. Now you can enroll to my Udemy premium course, which is Build Production Ready REST API in Spring Boot and Data JPA. We're going to build the expense tracker API. You will learn a whole lot of things. Make sure to check out this course and also use this coupon code before enrolling to this course. And also you can enroll to the another course, which is building the Spring Boot application with Thymeleaf. We're going to create a web application, which is Expense Manager, and you will learn a whole lot of things. Also, you can use this coupon code for this course as well. Now back to the video. In interest of time, I have already created the controller layer. Inside this controller package, I have created the movie controller. If you open this movie controller, we have created methods. We have exposed bunch of REST endpoints. Basically, we have exposed the REST endpoints for the CRUD operations, saving the movie and updating the movie, deleting the movie, getting the movie by ID and getting all the movies. The basic CRUD operations endpoints we have exposed here. And our goal is to write the JUnit test cases for all these REST endpoints. Like I said before, we are going to keep all our JUnit test cases inside this source test Java. So if you open this, we have the repository package and the service package, and similar to this controller package, we are going to create a package inside this source test Java as well. I'm going to create a new package. Let's call this controller. Inside this, create a new class. You can also create the JUnit class as well. Let's call this movie controller test, movie controller test. Let me expand this. So inside this, we are going to write the JUnit test cases for the controller layer. We are going to test these methods, the save method and update method and delete method, and all these methods. We're going to write the JUnit test cases. So if you look at this movie controller is dependent on the movie service. So we need to get the movie service as well inside this movie controller test. So let's create an instance variable of the movie service, private movie service, and let's call this movie service. And also we have to test these controller methods, right? So in order to test these controller methods, we are going to use the MockMvc. So let's auto-wire that as well. Private MockMvc. Let's call this MockMvc, and also we are going to create a reference variable for the object mapper as well. I'm going to tell you later why we need this object mapper. So first let's get that object mapper as well. Object mapper, let's call this object mapper. And whenever we are testing the controller layer, whenever we are testing the controller classes, in that class we are going to add the annotation with @webmvc test annotation. So before adding the webmvc annotation, we can read few lines about that. So I'm going to open the browser and let's search for webmvc test. And if you open the first link, which is docs.spring.io, this is the official documentation for the webmvc test annotation. It has a great documentation. I highly recommend you to spend some time on this URL and read a few lines about the webmvc test. I'm going to highlight few things. If you look at this annotation can be used for Spring MVC test that focuses only on the Spring MVC components. So we can use this annotation to test the MVC components such as controller, @controllers and @controller advice, JSON component and generic converter, filters, WebMVC configurer. So if you want to test these things, these components, then we can use the WebMVC test annotation. That is one thing. And the second thing is using this annotation will disable the full auto configuration and instead apply only the configuration that are relevant to the MVC test. So that is a great advantage, right? Instead of using the full auto configuration, because if you use a full auto configuration, it will load everything that we don't want. Since we are only testing the controller layer, we can only use the required things, only we can use the relevant things. So that is why we are going to use this web MVC test instead of the other annotations like Spring Boot test annotation. And also by default, test annotated with the web MVC test will also auto configure the Spring security and MockMvc. You can see when we are using whenever we are using the web MVC test, we will also use the MockMvc. So because this MockMvc will help us to test the controller layer methods. So basically, whenever we are using the web MVC test, we will also use the MockMvc annotation as well. And also, if you look at this, typically web MVC test is used to combine with the @mockbean or import to create any collaborators required by your controller beans. Let me come back to this MockBean in just a bit. So this is all about the web MVC test. So remember, whenever we are testing the controller layers, we will add the annotation to that class with web MVC test annotation, and in combination with web MVC test, we will also auto-wire the one which we have discussed, that is MockMvc. We will auto-wire this MockMvc so that we can test the controller layer methods. So now let's go back to our code and let's add the annotation, that is web MVC test annotation, and like I said before, we have to auto-wire this MockMvc. We need this MockMvc, so let's auto-wire this so that we can write we can make use of the controller layer methods to using this MockMvc. And also, like I said before, we need this object mapper as well. So let's auto-wire this object mapper as well, auto-wired. Okay, now we left with this movie service. Like I said, we have to mock this movie service. Okay, so what we can do is, if you look at the previous test cases, like if you go to the service and if you open this, we have used the mock annotation. This is from the Mockito dependency. Okay, we can use the @mock annotation as well, but instead of using the mock annotation, we are going to use another annotation which is from the Spring Boot test dependency, that is MockBean annotation. So this is also very similar to the mock annotation. It is also going to mock this movie service, but this is from the, you can see this is from the Spring Boot test dependency. This is not from the Mockito dependency. What is the difference between this mock and MockBean annotation? Both are creates the mock objects, and one we are going to use this MockBean annotation and mock annotation. It's very simple. If you're writing a test cases and that does not depend on the a Spring container or Spring application context, then you can use the plain mock annotation. But if you're writing a test cases that are dependent on the Spring container or Spring application context, if you are creating a mock object for one of the beans which are already available in the Spring container or the Spring application context, then we are going to use this @mockBean annotation. Of course, this movie service is already available inside the Spring application context, and we want to mock this movie service, right? So in order to do that, we are going to use the MockBean annotation instead of the mock annotation. Just understand that if you are writing a test case and that test case is dependent on the Spring application context, if you are mocking for one of the bean which is available inside the application context, the Spring application context, then we are going to use the @mockBean annotation. That's it. Alright, we have now created the test class to test the controller layer. We have added the required annotation, and now we will start writing the JUnit test cases for the controller layer methods. Now let's start writing the JUnit test cases for the methods. So if you open the movie controller, and we're going to write the JUnit test case for this method, which is create method, and this method is responsible for creating a movie object inside the database. It is going to save the movie object into the database. And if you look at the method implementation, we are calling the service method. and all we need to do is we have to stub this method while we are writing the JUnit test case. Open the movie controller test and write the JUnit test case void should create new movie. This is the test case method name. Add the annotation test. You can also add the display name annotation to provide the custom name for the JUnit test case. And inside this test case, first of all, we are going to set up the data that are required for our test case. So go to this movie service test and copy this one of the movie object and paste it. Let's add movie, and now we have set up the data that are required for our test case. Next we have to stub the method. So for that we're going to use when movie service dot save. When we call the save method, it should return the response. We're going to make use of the then return the avatar movie object back, which we have set up at the top. And instead of the avatar movie, what we're going to do is we're going to pass any movie object. So for that we're going to use the any method from the Mockito. So what I'll do is, let's go to this movie service test and copy this any and any long and paste it at the top. Now we can make use of this any from the argument matchers, and let's pass the movie object. If you pass any movie object, then it should return the avatar movie back. So now we have stubbed the save method, the movie service save method. Next we have to call the controller method. So for that we're going to use this MockMvc. So we have autowired at the top, this dot MockMvc dot perform, and we are going to make use of the methods, the HTTP methods. And if you look at this movie controller create method, it uses the post mapping annotation, which is a post HTTP request. So for that we are going to use this post method, and we will provide the URI, which is /movies. And do we have any other thing? Nothing. So /movies, and we will use this content type media type dot application underscore JSON UTF-8 dot content, and we are going to make use of this object mapper which we have auto-wired above. So I'm going to bring this to the next line, so this will be look nice. Object mapper dot write value as string, and we will pass this avatar movie as a parameter. Next, after this, this will throw an exception. We can handle that using the throws declaration, and let me get rid of this. We need this exception is fine. And if you look at this perform method is going to return the result actions, and we can get the result actions out of this. But what I'll do is I'm going to continue adding the chains, adding the methods as a chain. So and expect. If you look at this, once we make the HTTP request, we're going to expect the HTTP status code as 201, which is HTTP created, and we are going to expect that HTTP status code. So and expect status is created, and also we're going to expect the movie name, genre, and release date. So and expect JSON path $.name, the name property. We are going to compare against with the one which we have set up above. So avatar movie dot get name similarly, and expect. Okay, we have this is should be. We are going to make use of this is method and next similarly, and expect JSON path $.genre avatar movie dot get genre, and expect, okay, again I have missed this, so let's wrap it. Let's use the is method, and expect JSON path $.release date is avatar movie dot get release date. Save this, and this is deprecated, so let's use application underscore JSON. Perfect. So let's save this. So what we have done is we have returned the JUnit test case, and we have set up the data that are required for our test case, and we have stubbed the method which is movieService.save, and also we will make use of this MockMvc object to call the controller methods. We have made the post request for /mvc, and we have provided the content type and the content. For that we have used the object mapper, and we have convert this avatar movie object into a string, and we have once we have passed this, we have expected the values, we have expected the status code as created, and we have expected the avatar movie name, which is avatar, and also the genre we have expected it as action, and also the release date we have expected it as this one. And if everything goes well, this test case should pass. So let's verify that. So I'm going to select this, choose run as JUnit test. We should see the green bar. Let's see what do we get. Our test case is failed, which is interesting. I think we have missed something. We can verify that. Let's go to the top. We have added the WebMVC test, mockbean, autowired and autowired, and let's open the console. Let's see. Okay, we are getting this release date. I think it's a typo error. Let's see. Release date. Let's go to this. Okay, what is this actually? JSON path release date expected to the. Okay, it is coming in a string. So what I'll do is I'm going to add toString. So let's save this. Now if you select the JUnit test case, choose run as JUnit test, this time the test case should pass and we should see the green bar. You can see we will get the green bar and our test case is passed. So it's simple, right? We have set up the data that are required for our test case. We have stubbed the method, we have stubbed the movie service method, and we have make use of the MockMvc to call the controller methods. We have used the post method to make the HTTP call /movies, and the content type we have provided the content as in string, and we have expected the status code as created, and we have expected the JSON the properties name, genre, and release date, and we have converted that release date to a string because in the database it has been stored as a string. Now let's write a test case for getting the movies from the database. Let's go to the movie controller, and we have this get mapping API which is /movies, and this is going to return the list of movies from the database. And if you look at the implementation of this method, we are calling the movie service get all movies method. We have to stub this method. Let's go to this movie controller test. Let's create the test case. Void should fetch all movies. Of course you can give any name you want. We will add the test annotation. And inside this, first of all, we need to set up the data that are required for our test case. I'll go to this movie service test and I'm going to copy the movies. Let's add the movie. And now we have the two movie objects. We have to add this to the list. So let's create the array list, new array list, which is of type movie. Next, let's make use of this list to add the objects, the avatar movie list dot add. Let's add the Titanic movie. So now we have added the movie objects to this list. The list contains the two objects. Now we can stub the method when movie service dot get all movies. We will return the list which we have set up at the top. This is the response. So we have stubbed this method. So whenever we call this movie service dot get all movies method, we should return the list, and this list contains two objects, the avatar movie object and the Titanic movie. Now we can make use of this MockMvc to make use of the /movies API. So we will make use of the get method. We will provide the URI /movies, and this /movies get API does not take any parameters. So what we can do is we can make use of this and expect. We're going to expect the HTTP status OK. So if you go to this movie controller, you can see the HTTP status OK that we are returning. And let's make use of this status dot is OK. And also we're going to expect the list size to be 2. So JSON path $.size. We're going to compare the size of the list. So let's make use of this list dot size. So I'm going to cut this. We have to make use of this is method and paste it and save this. So we can add the exception. So add throws declaration at the top. Now let's save this. So now what we have done is we have set up the data that are required for our test case. We have created two movie objects, and also we have created the array list, and we have added those movies to the list. Next, we are going to stub the service method using the movie service. We're going to stub the get all movies method. And finally, we will make use of this MockMvc to call the controller method. We will make use of this get method to make the get API for the /movies API. And we're going to expect the status code to be OK. And also we're going to expect the list size to be 2. With this, let's save this. And now select this and choose run as JUnit test case. Our test case should be passed. We should see the green bar, and you can see we get the green bar. Our test case is passed as expected. Now we are going to write a JUnit test case for getting the movie by ID API. So let's go to this movie controller, and we have this API which is /movies/ the movie ID, which is a get mapping, and it is used to get the movie based on the ID. So let's write a JUnit test case for this API. Let's go to this movie controller test. Let's create a JUnit test case. Void should fetch one movie by ID. Let's add the test annotation. And inside this, first of all, let's go to this movie controller. And if you look at the implementation, we are calling the movie service method, which is get movie by ID. We have to stub this method. So inside this movie controller test, First of all, we have to set up the data that are required for our test case. So let's copy one of this movie object and paste it. Next, in the down, we are going to stub the method. Let's make use of this when movie service dot get movie by id, and we are going to pass any id, the long id. So for that, we're going to make use of this any long. Then we are going to return the avatar movie object back, which we have set up at the top. So now we have stubbed this movie service get movie by id method. Now we are going to make use of this MockMvc to call the controller method. Let's make use of this get method slash movies slash id. So we're going to make use of this path variable id. We need to pass the id, so we can pass any long. So I'm going to pass 1L because this is the one that we have set up at the top, the id 1. And we're going to expect the status to be 200. Status is okay. And also we are going to expect the name. Let's make use of this JSON path $.name. Let's make use of this is avatar movie dot get name. Also we can expect JSON path $.genre. Let's make use of this is method avatar movie dot get genre. You can also do it for release date as well, but I'm going to leave it as it is. So with this, we have to throws the declaration, add a throws declaration because this will throw the exception, and save this. So now we have returned the JUnit test case for getting the movie by ID. We have set up the data that are required for our test case. We have stubbed the method that is movie service get movie by ID, and we have passed the long. We will make use of the any long, and we will return the response that is the avatar movie. And we have make use of this MockMvc to make the API call that is /movie/movie ID, and we have expected the result, the status code to be okay, which is 200, and also we have expected the property name is avatar, and also the property name action, the property name genre is to be action. With this, now when we run the JUnit test case, our test case should be passed. We should see the green bar. You can see we will get the green bar. Our test case is passed. Now let's write the JUnit test case for deleting the movie API. Let's go to this movie controller, and we have this delete mapping, which is deleting the movie from the database. And if you look at this, once we have made this request, we are returning the HTTP status as no content. And inside this, we are calling the movie service method, which is delete movie. So we have to stub this method. Let's go to this movie controller test and write the test case. Void should delete movie. Let's add the test annotation, and inside this, first of all, we have to set the data that are required for our test case. So I'll just copy this and I'll paste it. Once we set up the data, we have to stub the method. So when movie service dot delete movie, and we need to pass the movie ID. So we can pass the any long. So we can pass any long, then it should return we made some mistake, then something we made, any long. Okay, so since if you look at this, this is going to return the void. So what I'll do is, let me get rid of this. We are going to make use of this do nothing. We have already used this inside our service layer test cases. Do nothing dot when movie service dot delete movie, and to this we're going to pass the any long. Okay, so because when we call this delete movie method, what will happen is this will return the void. To test the test cases which return the void, we're going to use do nothing method. So do nothing when movie service is called the delete movie method, and to this we're going to pass the any long id. And finally we will make use of this MockMvc to call the controller method perform. We will call the delete method and we will pass the URI /movies /id and we will pass the id 1, which is of type long, and we are going to expect the status to be no content. So status is no content. That's it. We will add the throws declaration to handle the exception. So let's save this. What we have done is we have set up the data that are required for our test case, and we have stubbed the method. We have stubbed the method which return the void. So for that we will use the do nothing method, and finally we will call the delete method using the MockMvc, and we will expect the status to be no content. With this, let's save the file, and the moment we run the JUnit test case, we should see the green bar, our test case to be passed. You can see our test case is passed. We should see the green bar. Now we're going to write a JUnit test case for the last CRUD method, which is updating the movie. And if you go to this movie controller, we have this put mapping for /movies/ the movie ID and the HTTP status code. The response, we are sending it back as 200 OK. And inside this method, we are calling the service method, which is update movie. So we need to stub this method. So let's go to this movie controller test, create a JUnit test case, void should update movie. We can add the annotation test, and inside this we are going to set up the data that are required for our test case. And next we will make use of this when and then return to stub the method when movie service dot update movie, and to this we're going to pass the any movie object. So let's use any movie dot class, and we need to pass the ID as well. So let's make use of this any long. So if you pass the movie object, any movie object, as well as the long, any long type or the any long ID, we should return the movie object which we have set up at the top, that is avatar movie. Now we have stubbed this service method. All we need to do is we have to test the controller method. So let's use this dot MockMvc dot perform, and we have this method called put the URL /movies/id, and we can pass the ID, that is 1L. You can pass any ID, the 1, 2, 3, anything we can pass, because we have set up it here as any long. If you pass any long here, that should be stub the method. and we have to set up the content type, because we have to for that update method we have to pass the JSON data. So for that we're going to use the media type dot application underscore JSON, and also we have to set up the content which is we will make use of this object mapper dot write value as string. We have to pass the JSON object. So the object which we are going to convert it as JSON is avatar movie, and we will expect the status to be status dot is okay, and we're going to expect the result. So for that we're going to use the JSON path $.name. Let's make use of this is method, is avatar movie dot get name, and expect, we can also expect the genre as well. So JSON path $.genre. We'll make use of this is method, is avatar movie dot get genre, and we can add the throws declaration. We don't need this JSON processing exception. Let's save this. So what we have did is we have set up the data that are required for our test case. We have stubbed the method that is update movie, and next we have make use of this MockMvc to call the controller method. We will make use of this put method to make the HTTP put request, and we have expected the status code to be okay, which is 200, and also we have expected the JSON property which is named to be avatar, and also it is to be the action to be genre to be action. So with this, let's save the changes and select the test case, choose run as, and choose JUnit test. You can see test case has been passed. We should see the green bar. Our test case is passing as expected. So far we have written a test cases for all the APIs. Now let's go ahead and run all these test cases one at a time. So just right click on this, choose run as JUnit test case. We should see the green bar and all the test cases to be passed. So let's verify it. You can see we will get the green bar and all the test cases to be passed. If anything goes wrong, then these test cases should be failed. Alright, so now what I'll do is, in every test case we are actually setting up the data. Instead of setting up the data in each and every test case, let's make it common. So much like in our previous layers, what we have done is we have used this before each annotation to set up the common data. So let's do the same thing. So I'll just copy this and paste it at the top, and also I'm going to declare these two properties. Alright, so now inside this I'm going to get rid of these the data that we have set up. So let's get rid of this. Similarly, inside this also I'm going to get rid of this, and here also I'm going to get rid of this. So let's save this. So now we have used this lifecycle method, the lifecycle annotation, which is provided by JUnit, and before running each and every test case, this is going to run this and we are going to set up the data. So with this, let's save the file And now when we run the JUnit test class, we should see the green bar and all the test cases to be passed just like before. Super, you can see the green bar and all these test cases has been passed and our test cases is working as expected. Alright, now we have returned the JUnit test cases for all the layers, the controller layer, the repository layer and the service layer. In the next part, we are going to perform the integration testing or the end-to-end testing. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel for the future videos. I will see you in the next video.